This is a portable gramophone player my friend Sam gave to me recently. As far as I know, it hadn't been used for quite a while, so I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. Inside the lid there was a label. It's a Viva-tonal Grafonola by Columbia. The first thing to do was give it a wind and see if it was working normally. I don't have a great deal of experience with gramophones, so I was also trying to work out its functionality as I went along. The handle was a bit difficult to locate in the winding shaft. Sometimes it feels as though it should be winding, but actually you're not turning the spring at all. Once it's located properly, you can feel more pushback from the spring. I also had a bit of trouble with the auto start-stop, but it worked out later. I put a fresh needle on to test with a record. Apparently you should use a new needle for every track you play. My test record is this Hawaiian guitar and Wurlitzer organ track, Sweetheart Darling, played by Martindale and Charles D. Smart. From 1933 apparently. I wonder when it last got played. A bit more trouble with the auto stop, and it felt a bit sluggish to get up to speed. The soundbox is nice and loud, but the motor's definitely struggling. I gave it another quick wind to see if a boost would help. It didn't really make much difference, so I thought I'd have a look inside and see if I could encourage it to work any better. First, the sprung washer holding the platter down. It barely had any spring in it, so it just pulled away. Taking the platter off was easy. I had a fiddle about with the speed control and auto stop to see if I could work out how they worked. Still not exactly sure at this point. I also noticed the model and serial number under the platter, so I checked that out online. This is a Viva-tonal Grafonola 211Z, made by Columbia Gramophone Company of London. This dates it to 1946 or 1947. The company was based in this building in East London. At this point the spring is still letting out, so the spindle is still turning. Some interesting creaking noises from the motor as I took out the 4 corner screws. I got slightly distracted by this flexible rubber circle mounted inside the lid. What is it for? Opposite, where it makes contact with the base, there's a little round trough for spare needles. When you put the lid down, the rubber disc seals the trough to keep them in place, necessary for a portable music system like this one. Next I took the mechanism out of the case. Everything is mounted to this central board. Underneath was a mysterious torn sticker, frustratingly incomplete. I could make out grease frequently and what looks like oil all bearings and governor. That's what I was planning to try and do anyway, so it's good to know I was on the right track. It's a lovely illustration. I stacked the internal parts on some foam to protect the tone arm. Is that what it's called when it's on a gramophone? I'm not sure. It took a bit of messing about to disassemble it and decouple the motor. I tried to keep the parts in order for reassembly. The mechanism was covered in fluff and dust, stuck to the old grease. First I cleaned off some of the muck with an old toothbrush. The speed governor was spinning well, everything seemed to be working okay, but perhaps just a bit gunked up. Holding the spindle, it felt like there was very little resistance. It was easy to stop. Perhaps I'm too used to direct drive DJ turntables. It was also squeaking and groaning a fair bit, but likely that's because it didn't like to be driving when being held at this funny angle. I left it to run down again before going in with some oil. Bike lubricant seemed like the best option I had available, so I ran some of that through each of the sets of gears. I also worked out how the speed control was working at this point. The lever, which is accessible on the top of the device, changes the position of a small felt pad against the disc attached to the governor. Changing the maximum travel of the disc affects how much these counterweights are allowed to move away from the axle. The movement is quite precise, and there's potential for the felt pad to foul the weights if it moves too far towards them. It could be that this is what's affecting the speed. Whilst looking more closely at the motor, I noticed all this congealed gluey grease around the axle of the spring case, so I went to work to remove most of that in case it was causing any resistance. I also found an old needle lodged in there somewhere. This wouldn't be helping things run smoothly. Testing the motor again, it seemed to be running quite well, but hard to tell if it was any better than before really. I oiled a couple more spots and was trying to work out where the grease frequently point was supposed to be. I put the platter back on to see if that would help it run, acting as a bit of a flywheel to keep things going. Getting the motor back in position was a bit of a puzzle. The auto stop arm seemed to get in the way all the time. Once back in position, it was fairly straightforward to reassemble though. Getting the arm for the speed control in the right position seemed important. It needs quite a lot of torque to change the position of the felt pad. The arm was attached to a round profile rod with just a grub screw, and it didn't seem to bite very well. I repositioned it pretty much where it was before, then got it all back into the case. Time for another test. Still running slow, and you can see when I move it how sensitive that pitch control is. Clearly it needed repositioning. So time for a proper speed test. I used a tap tempo app on my phone. Once per cycle would give me the rotations per minute. My accuracy isn't that important as long as I only hit it once per cycle. The bit of electrical tape helped me to see the count more clearly. 103 RPM isn't that far off 78. I thought it best to test with the record on. A typical gramophone needle presses with about 300 grams of weight, so it could add a lot of drag to the mechanism. It was quite hard to tap the button once per cycle, but not in time with the music instead. It seemed to be keeping quite good time though. Finally got to the target 78 with the speed dial pretty much right at the bottom of the scale. I adjusted the arm again so it was centred on the dial face, and then gave it another wind for a proper test. Playing the B-side now of the same record, Hold Me, played by the same musicians. It seemed to be playing a lot better. And the auto stop was working well too. So I packed it away, ready to head home. Only after did I notice I'd forgotten the split washer that's supposed to keep the platter on. I gave it a quick squeeze to try and ensure it would hold better. So thanks Sam for the gramophone player. I've now got a portable acoustic music system I can listen to in the garden, or anywhere really.